Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone.
Authorities in Jackson County, Georgia say that they arrested a suspected vehicle thief with quite the interesting choice of outfit this week when they managed to track him and his stolen vehicle to a ravine off of a local interstate. According to reports, the incident began sometime on September 8th when police received a call about a stolen truck and trailer in the city of Hoschton. A search began immediately, and help was called in from neighboring Hall County, who provided a police canine named Ann to assist in tracking the suspect. The half-day search ended in success when both the truck and the suspect were found just off of Interstate 85 near J.D. Brooks Road. It turned out that the man had crashed the vehicle into a ravine about 40 feet off the road. However, that wasn't the only surprise waiting for police. While the suspect had originally been described as wearing tan pants, a white shirt, and carrying a backpack, he was traveling a fair bit lighter by the time police caught up with him. Now, he was simply dressed in a pair of boxers and some socks. The suspect was placed under arrest, though at the time of this recording has not been identified by name. It's not clear why the man ditched his clothing, but perhaps he thought it might help him avoid being tracked or identified. If so, he was clearly wrong.
Authorities in Clark County, Washington say that a 31-year-old man has been arrested and is facing numerous charges this week after he allegedly kidnapped a woman in her own vehicle after asking her for a bottle of water. According to reports, police were first alerted about the incident sometime after 4 a.m. on September 3rd, when a couple of homeowners in the city of Camas awoke to the sounds of a woman yelling and banging on their back door. Understandably startled, the homeowners went to investigate and were told by the woman that she had just been the victim of a kidnapping. The woman said that earlier that night she had been checking her mail in the neighboring city of Vancouver when an unknown man had approached her and asked her for a bottle of water and a ride to a nearby gas station. She said that she had agreed, but that somewhere along the way things had taken a chilling turn. The man had pulled out a knife, told her to get into the passenger seat, and had taken control of her SUV. After that, she said that she had been held captive while he drove all over the county, until she decided to risk jumping out of the vehicle to escape. When police were called, they were eventually able to track down the suspect, who was still behind the wheel of the stolen SUV. A short chase ensued until the man was trapped by officers and placed under arrest. The man refused to give his name after being taken into custody, but has since been identified as 31-year-old Jeremy Alexa. He has now been charged with first-degree kidnapping, first-degree robbery, reckless driving, and attempting to elude police. While Alexa remains behind bars at the time of this recording, it appears that some details of this case remain unconfirmed. Multiple reports we came across provided different and sometimes conflicting information about the incident, such as when it began and the nature of the victim's escape. For example, one report we came across alleged that the woman had actually jumped from the vehicle 3 separate times, but had agreed to get back in after becoming concerned about her cell phone and purse. It's not clear why this is the case, but we wanted to let you know for the sake of full disclosure. The woman's name has not been released, and the situation is still developing.
Authorities in Alameda County, California say that they finally tracked down and arrested a wanted fugitive this week, more than 6 months after he was accused of the heinous murder of his girlfriend's 8-year-old daughter. According to reports, the incident began earlier this year when police in the city of Hayward received a missing persons report from several extended family members of 8-year-old Sophia Mason. The family members claimed that they had not seen Sophia since the previous December and that they had reason to believe that she was in danger. This report led to the arrest of Sophia's mother, Samantha Johnson, who had previously been investigated for abuse against her daughter. While in custody, Johnson began to make chilling statements to police. She told officers that her daughter had been living with her at her boyfriend's house in the city of Merced. There, Sophia had been treated to a host of horrific abuse, ranging from physical attacks to malnourishment to sexual assaults. Johnson claimed that her boyfriend, 34-year-old Dante Jackson, had been the one responsible for all of this, and that he had also forced Sophia to live in a shed on the property. Sadly, by the time police went to Jackson's home in Merced, it was too late. They found Sophia's body in a bathtub of a locked bathroom. A search for Jackson began, but he could not be located. Well, this week, authorities finally announced that the 6-month manhunt had come to an end when Jackson was taken into custody somewhere in the city of Newark, just outside of Fremont. He is now facing multiple charges, including murder and child abuse. Sophia's mother is reportedly facing the same charges and is currently pleaded not guilty. Police say that they have also arrested 4 other people who allegedly helped Jackson during his time on the run, 3 of whom have now been charged with accessory to murder. The situation is still developing.
Authorities in both Pierce County and Thurston County, Washington, say that 2 teenagers have been arrested and are facing murder charges this week after they were accused of killing one of their mother's ex-boyfriends. According to reports, the situation began on August 31st when authorities in Thurston County announced that a 16-year-old boy named Gabriel Davies was missing. His disappearance was reported to police after he failed to show up for football practice at his high school in the city of Olympia. At around 5:30 p.m. that evening, his abandoned vehicle was found on the 16,100 block of Tilley Road South, and he was spotted walking in the area later that night. Police continued to issue appeals for information concerning his whereabouts, finally ending the next night, September 1st, when Gabriel was found walking alone. However, it wasn't long before the case would take a strange turn. Earlier that same morning, sometime after 9 a.m., police in Pierce County received a call from a man asking for a welfare check on a 51-year-old man named Daniel McCaw. The man on the phone explained that he was McCaw's supervisor and that he was concerned because the 51-year-old had not been to work in 4 days. When police arrived at McCaw's home in the city of Orting, they found one of the side doors to the property unlocked. A dog was also going in and out of the house through a doggy door. Shortly after entering the residence, investigators found McCaw dead inside. He had multiple stab wounds and a gunshot wound to the head. No weapons were found in the dead man's immediate vicinity, however, indicating that he was likely the victim of some kind of attack. Not long after, things started coming together, when authorities learned that McCaw had formerly dated the mother of the 16-year-old boy who had just gone missing and then reappeared under mysterious circumstances. Sure enough, when detectives reviewed the surveillance footage taken from McCaw's house, they discovered that a few nights previously, 2 skinny young-looking men had entered the property by climbing through the doggy door. They had left a short time later through the side door that was found unlocked, and were the only ones to go in or out of the residence during the time before and after McCaw's death. It was then that attention turned to Gabriel Davies. Soon after, authorities discovered the identity of the second teen allegedly involved in the crime, Gabriel's friend, 16-year-old Justin Yoon. Upon further investigation, police learned that on the night of the murder, Gabriel and Justin had been on a camping trip with family friends, but had disappeared from the campsite at around midnight. They hadn't returned until nearly 7 a.m. the following morning. The case only continued to get stranger when the fathers of both Gabriel and Justin contacted police, each suggesting that their son had been involved in the crime, but that the other teen had been the actual killer. Gabriel and his father also offered a motive behind the crime. According to them, sometime recently, Gabriel was approached by a group of McCaw's, quote, biker buddies, who threatened him and attacked him. They allegedly threatened further harm unless he agreed to steal something for them from McCaw's house. Gabriel reportedly told his friend Justin what had happened, and he agreed to help him break in. Gabriel and his father alleged that the break-in went wrong and that McCaw was killed in the process. In their version of events, Justin was the gunman. However, according to reports, Justin and his father have told a similar story, except with Gabriel as responsible for the actual killing. During questioning, Gabriel reportedly led police to the area where he and Justin allegedly disposed of their weapons following the crime, and several bags containing knives were recovered from the area. It's unclear if any guns were found. At the current time, it's difficult to know what to make of the situation. There are lots of bizarre pieces to the story, and several details that have not been clarified or filled in. Chief among these are details concerning Gabriel's disappearance. While it's been alleged by police that he faked going missing in order to hide his involvement in the crime, it has not been reported what he actually told them at the time that he was found. It's also been reported that Gabriel's family life may have been extremely chaotic leading up to the time of the attack, and that there has been a years-long custody battle between his parents that at one point involved Daniel McCaw. It's not clear what, if any, relevance this might have to the murder case, however. Gabriel and Justin are now both facing multiple murder and burglary charges, as well as unlawful possession of a firearm. At the time of this recording, the situation is still developing.
Authorities in Cecil County, Maryland say that 5 people are dead this week after a man allegedly shot his entire family before turning the gun on himself. According to reports, the tragic incident began just after 9 a.m. on September 9th when authorities received a 911 call from a man reporting an emergency at a residence in the community of Elk Mills. The man said that 3 children and a woman had been shot at a property on Hebron Court, a cul-de-sac located about 60 miles northeast of Baltimore. After that, the man abruptly hung up, and repeated attempts to recontact him were unsuccessful. When police arrived at the house, they discovered a grisly scene. 5 people were dead inside. All of them had died of gunshot wounds and were found to be members of the same family. The family members were later identified as husband and wife, 39-year-old Marcus and Tara Milligan, as well as their 3 children, 14-year-old Teresa, 11-year-old Nora, and 8-year-old Finn. It's now alleged that Marcus shot all of the others before turning the gun on himself. It's speculated that he was the one that made the chilling 911 call that morning, though this has yet to be officially confirmed. As for a motive behind the tragedy, so far it seems as if authorities are at a loss. The Cecil County Sheriff's Office said they had no prior records of calls or visits to the property. At the time of this recording, the situation is still under investigation.
Authorities in Monroe County, Florida say that a 19-year-old woman has been given the legal equivalent of a slap on the wrist this week after she offered a bizarre explanation for her recent behavior at a recent traffic stop. According to reports, the incident began on the morning of May 12th of this year when an officer with the Monroe County Sheriff's Office spotted a woman speeding and driving recklessly in Key Largo. The woman was traveling at about 90 miles per hour, so the officer decided to conduct a traffic stop. However, when the officer turned on his siren and lights, the woman, later identified as 19-year-old Jania Chimerical Douglas, did not stop. Instead, she led the officer on a 5-mile car chase, during which time she could be seen noticeably looking back at the patrol car that was chasing her. The pursuit came to an end at a 3-way intersection when another police officer laid down some spike strips. Douglas reportedly stopped before running over the spikes. When questioned about her behavior, Douglas initially claimed that she was late for her job as a housekeeping supervisor at a local resort. However, when the officer pressed her on this, saying that if she had simply stopped when he requested, all she would have ended up with was a citation at worst, she reportedly responded that, quote, being arrested for something simple had always been on her bucket list. According to the officer who conducted the stop, she actually mentioned this a few times, and fortunately for her, he was able to grant her wish. According to reports, Douglas has no prior criminal history, and so was given a deal by prosecutors. In addition to serving 96 hours of community service, paying $750 in court fees, and writing a letter of apology, if she stays out of trouble for the next 12 months, authorities have agreed to dismiss the felony charges against her.
Authorities in San Mateo County, California, say that they're investigating the horrific aftermath of an alleged domestic violence incident this week after a young mother was beheaded in broad daylight by the father of one of her children. According to reports, the incident took place at around 11:50 a.m. on September 8th in the city of San Carlos. It allegedly began when 27-year-old Karina Castro got into an argument with her ex-boyfriend, 33-year-old Jose Rafael Solano. The two were outside of Karina's apartment near Magnolia Avenue and Laurel Street when out of nowhere, Solano allegedly pulled a sword out of the trunk of his car. Horrified witnesses reportedly watched helplessly as he attacked, beheading Karina in broad daylight before running away on foot. Though Solano was able to escape during the immediate aftermath of the attack, he apparently returned to the scene later unarmed. He was placed under arrest, though it's unclear if police have since been able to recover the murder weapon. According to reports, Karina leaves behind 2 daughters, ages 7 and 1. Solano is reportedly the father of the younger child. Karina's father and grandmother say that they had always been fearful of her relationship with Solano. Apparently, he had been abusive towards her in the past, and no matter how many times they begged her to stop seeing him, she would not. This was apparently true even after Karina got a restraining order against Solano in April of this year. Authorities further say that in the lead up to the murder, Karina and Solano had been having a volatile argument through text messages. Karina allegedly threatened to expose his prior criminal record to people that knew him, as well as telling his friends about an intimate relationship that he had with another man. Solano reportedly responded by threatening her life multiple times before showing up at her apartment. At the time of this recording, Solano remains in custody on murder charges. Meanwhile, Karina's father and grandmother say that their top priority is getting custody of her children, who were taken by social workers following the murder. The situation is still developing.
Authorities in Memphis, Tennessee say that 4 people are dead this week and at least 3 others are injured after a 19-year-old man went on a shooting rampage across the city and in the surrounding area. According to reports, the incident began at around 1 a.m. on September 7th at a home in the east of the city. Out of nowhere, 19-year-old Ezekiel Kelly allegedly walked up to a group of people there, pulled one man aside, and shot him in the head. He then fired several more shots before fleeing the scene. More than 15 hours later, at around 4:30 p.m. that afternoon, Kelly reportedly continued his violent rampage. Police were alerted to the situation when they got a call about a man who was found dead inside his vehicle somewhere in the south of the city. He had been shot multiple times. Minutes later, police received another call, this time about a woman who had been shot in the leg. She was taken to the hospital where she was treated for her injuries. At around 6 p.m., the violence escalated once again when Kelly reportedly entered a store in the suburb of Nutbush and shot a man while streaming on Facebook Live. The man was rushed to hospital in critical condition, but reportedly survived. Partially because of the live stream, police began to connect all of the violent incidents and launched a citywide search for Kelly. Sadly, they were unable to find him in time, allowing him to attack 3 more victims, 2 of whom tragically died from their injuries. Kelly allegedly stole one of these victims' cars before driving south into Mississippi, where he carjacked another person. Finally, police were able to catch up to Kelly, who led them on a high-speed chase back into Memphis before crashing and being arrested. At the time of this recording, only 2 of the 4 people killed in the terrifying attack have been formally identified. The first was a nurse and mother of 3 from West Memphis, Arkansas, named Allison Parker, while the second was a 24-year-old aspiring food truck owner named Dwayne Turnstall. Dwayne was the first person that Kelly reportedly killed during his rampage and was also the father of a young girl. He was expecting his second child at the time of his murder. The horrific shooting incident has understandably left people across Memphis shaken, many of whom have barely had time to wrap their heads around the recent kidnapping and murder of Eliza Fletcher, whose case we covered in last week's edition of our show. At a press conference this week, the city's mayor, Jim Strickland, expressed his outrage over the situation, pointing out that the only reason Kelly had the opportunity to commit the terrifying shootings in the first place was because he had been released from prison early. Strickland was reportedly referring to a drive-by shooting that Kelly was involved in when he was 17. Apparently, the 2 victims in the case did not cooperate with the investigation, and so Kelly was able to plead to lesser charges compared to the ones prosecutors originally wanted to bring against him. He was ultimately sentenced to 3 years, but was released after 11 months. As for a motive behind this week's incident, authorities say that they are still investigating. So far, it appears that Kelly has only been charged with Dwayne's murder, though police say that additional charges are coming. The situation is still developing. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a minute to thank our amazing supporters over on Patreon. As many of you are aware, our situation on YouTube always seems to be a bit uncertain. but our patrons help to ensure that we can continue to make content like this long term without having to worry as much about what surprises might be thrown our way. Plus, patrons also get access to 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. If you'd like to help support the channel directly, head over to patreon.com/crimezone to join. You can also find that link in the description below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and take care.